Little Mabel blew a bubble, and it caused a lot of trouble. Such a lot of bubble trouble in a bibble-bobble way. For it broke away from Mabel as it bobbed across the table, where it bobbled over Baby, and it wafted him away. So begins Margaret Mahy's effervescent picture book, Bubble Trouble. Baby and Bubble drift off through the sky, pursued by Mabel and their mother, Krista Gribble and her brother, little neighbor Tibble and his jolly mother Sybil, crumpled Mr. Copple and feeble Mrs. Threeble, a jogger christened Neville, kindly Canon Dapple, and wicked treble singer Abel with his bubble-bursting pebble. Polly Dunbar's whimsical watercolor and cut paper illustrations enhance the fun as we celebrate because Mabel and some others saved her brother and the day. I am delighted to present the 2009 Boston Globe Hornbook Award for Picture Book to Bubble Trouble, published by Clarion Press, edited by Jennifer Vingertsan, written by Margaret Mahy, and illustrated by Polly Dunbar. Publicist Jennifer Groves will be accepting the award for Margaret Mahy and Polly Dunbar.
Hello. Polly and Margaret both sent some remarks for me to read for you. This is from Polly. I'm thrilled that Bubble Trouble has won the Picture Book Boston Globe Hornbook Award. What an honor. It is a shame that I am not with you today to join in the celebrations. Instead, I am blowing you a great big bubble all the way from Brighton, England. I imagine this bubble is bursting over you right now, and it is full of thank yous. My first thank you is to Margaret Mahy for all those beautiful words. When I first read the story, I felt so excited as though I had been given a glorious gift. I know a good story when it gives me butterflies. I tried to tackle the pictures with as much joy and gusto as Margaret had obviously put into the writing. As I drew each character, the words floated around and around my head. It's a real brain twister. I found myself pulling the most extraordinarily worried faces as the text got more hilarious and the predicament of the baby more serious. You can't help but be swept along with this story. So thank you also to Janetta Otterberry and Judith Iskret at Francis Lincoln, who published the book in the UK. They gave me the freedom to illustrate this book with exactly the happy abandon that it needed. And I would also like to thank Jennifer Wingertson from Clarion for publishing Bubble Trouble in the States. And last but not least, a huge thank you to the Boston Globe Hornbook people who picked our book for this award. Hooray. So although I'm not with you, I will be raising a glass of bubbly and hoping you will too. And maybe we will all cause a bit of bubble trouble in a bibble-bobble way. Thank you so much. And Margaret asked me to read this. When I worked as a librarian for the school library service in New Zealand, one of my jobs was reading the book reviews and ordering such books as were praised and recommended. The Hornbook was extremely important to me back then, particularly since it featured such thoughtful and reliable reviews, along with articles that tied me into the international world of children's books, letting me know just what was being published for children in the USA and what experts thought of them. I could feel my awareness stretching as new titles and authors were mentioned, and of course, I was always fascinated to find out just which books had won the Boston Globe Hornbook Awards, not only because the winners were books I wanted to acquire for the library, but because, in life beyond work, I was a committed reader, always looking for some story that would thrill me, and there was a strong chance I would find the award winners thrilling in various ways. When I heard that my story, Bubble Trouble, was an award winner, I was utterly amazed and, of course, delighted. Writers create their stories inside their heads, then send their stories out into the world with the hope and the expectation that somewhere out there, some reader will read and enjoy the story, building it back into his or her own private world, an inner world that is inevitably different from that other inner world, which was the source of the story in the first place. So the story, told or published, describes an arc moving from one imagination to another. The writer launches the story, the illustrator expands it, the publisher gives it an accessible form, and ultimately, the reader receives and in some ways recreates it. For even when the words are firmly in print on the page, readers respond differently to them, make their own connections, build their own edifices of image and language. Winning an award means that experienced readers have enjoyed the story, and the story is fulfilled. The starting point for a story like Bubble Trouble is, of course, language. It has something of the quality of a tongue twister, a traditional game that people have played with words for many years. When I was a child, I was certainly fascinated by the sound of words, a fascination that I think we all share. Language is so important to us that from infancy on, we respond to games with words, games that entice us into using words, not only tongue twisters, but echoing rhymes. School playgrounds generate their own rhymes and chants, along with small verses that seem to have no author, no identifiable origin, that seem to spring into existence in some strange, spontaneous way. I am not suggesting that Bubble Trouble is like this. For one thing, it does tell an elaborate story, and for another, my name is attached to it. But I do think, however, that part of its appeal, to me at least, is a relationship with the word games of my childhood. I would love to be able to receive the award in person, but I have to resign myself to thanking you all with words, written down and then read aloud across an ocean. But after all, even if I was lucky enough to be with you, ultimately my thanks would be conveyed in words anyway. It has been such a huge thrill to me to have the story recognized in this way, a recognition that I've never considered possible. So here's to the Horn Book, I cry. Looking a little to the left, I can see copies of the Horn Book in a line of books at the back of my desk. Here's to the Boston Globe Horn Book Award. I have already said thank you, but there is nothing wrong in a case like this with saying it again. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.